everyone. Today I have a very special guest here with me today from Canada. This is Judy Arnall. She is a certified child development specialist, keynote speaker, and a master of non-punitive parenting and education practices. She founded the Unschooling Canada Association and is the best-selling author of 5 books, including Unschooling to University. She's also the mother of 5 adult children who are all unschooled. 3 have graduated from university and 1 is attending, and I think 1 is going to attend. So welcome, Judy. How are you today?
Hi, I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so great to have you here because, as you know, there's something weird going on in the world. There are 1.4 billion kids who are not able to go to school right now, or some of them are going back as we record this. And a lot of some schools have been doing a good job with sending distance learning materials to their the students. Others have not. So a lot of parents around the world are scrambling to find information about how they can homeschool their kids at home. And a lot of them are kind of, purchasing or getting these box curriculums or these free online things and kind of doing school at home. And you have a different idea, which many people who are already familiar with homeschooling know that unschooling is a great alternative. So I wanted us to focus on that today and help the people who are considering homeschooling, maybe not putting their kids back in the public or private school system, or people who have just maybe they've been homeschooling for a while and it's not really working, and maybe they want to learn more about unschooling and self-directed education. So that's what I wanted to focus on today. And maybe first you can kind of help us define what is unschooling, what is self-directed education?
Okay, wonderful. Self-directed education it's really a methodology of learning. So it's where the learner controls everything, what they learn, when, where, how, and even if. And when parents right now have probably experienced what we call distance education, where the school controls it. So it's not so much where education takes place, it's who controls it, who makes decisions, who's responsible. So a lot of parents are doing distance education where the school sends home packages and says, make your kids do this. And a lot of parents right now are discovering how far behind their kids are or how far ahead they are. It's just not a personal experience for the kids. So they are deciding to take on homeschooling for the fall. And homeschooling is parent control. It's not school control, it's parent controlled. And that's the next step of the continuum. And a lot of parents feel comfortable, especially in the earlier grades, that they can do that. I would assure parents that all parents pretty well have content expertise to teach their kids to grade 8, even without curriculum. Like, we're not. We're a pretty smart bunch. Mm-hmm. And then the next shift along the continuum is when kids, for whatever reasons, are bored or they stop listening to mom and dad and they decide to learn what they want to learn. So that's what we call unschooling. So it's more self-directed. So it's not the school controls, the parent controls, it's the learner controls what they're going to learn.
And do you see that happening with teens who homeschool, or do you see that also happening with younger kids?
Actually, both. Teens are more likely to say, I don't want to learn this. This is boring. Right. Especially with online learning methods, a lot of them are not interactive. And young kids learn through 3-dimensional experiences. We know that through brain studies. And young kids are more apt to just act out and say, rather than say, I don't like this. So different kids have different ways of telling you that education is not working for them.
Okay, so can kids really learn without school and homeschool or unschooled? How does that work?
Well, every baby that's born is born learning. Those brain cells are just dying to connect with each other. So we put kids on a path where they're born and they play through babyhood, toddlerhood, preschoolerhood. And then about age 5, we say, that's it, you can't play anymore. You have to go off on this government learning track. But we know that kids who are left on the play track keep on learning. And it was really fascinating to me to watch my kids. They came to the same topics that were prescribed in the curriculum all on their own up until the ages of 13. So they, like, show me a kid that doesn't like playing with magnets or with boats or looking at animals in zoos or in the wild. Kids at that age, their brains are wired to make sense of their surroundings and tangible things in their environment. So they will come to those naturally, those topics, whether schools introduce them or not, or whether parents introduce them or not. Kids will keep on learning. Absolutely.
Okay, but what about math and reading and writing, you know, the 3 R's? What about those topics? Are kids, young kids, naturally gravitating towards that, or does that come later for a typical unschooler?
Absolutely, they come at the same time. Just like every child wants to learn to use the toilet, every child wants to learn to make sense of symbols on a page. So every child is motivated to read. I remember my little guy, I had 3 late readers because they're boys. They didn't read till 9 or 10. And they wanted to read so bad because they wanted to play, I think it was Farmville on Facebook. But it just wasn't clicking for them developmentally. And every child learns to read on their own when it just clicks developmentally. It's just like toilet training.
Yeah.
As far as math goes, though, math is all about, it's tools to solve a problem. And when kids are faced with real life problems, then they learn the tools and it sticks much better if they can actually work it out to fix the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have now 11-year-old twins, and they went to public school early on in a play-based preschool that I owned. They were not really into reading or writing initially, but one of them got really into writing by playing Roblox and chatting with the other kids. And now a few years later, she is a pretty good creative writer. That's a big passion of hers. And so the other daughter, my other daughter, she has ADHD, so she's a little bit behind too, but again, she's getting better bit by bit, just naturally, not really from us pushing it. So I agree with that. Okay, so, you know, what is needed to unschool successfully? Like if a parent is considering this, maybe they've been homeschooling for a while and they're seeing that it's not working and they want to try unschooling and let their kids have a bit more choice and freedom of what they learn. How does a parent help? Because you're not a teacher anymore, right? You're more of a facilitator. So
right. You're the guide on the side, not the sage on the stage. So in my book, Unschooling to University, I outlined the 3 things needed. One is lots of unstructured time to pursue, time to play, time to just process what's going on in the brain. And then a facilitator. So, for example, I had a son who wanted to learn how to weld. He didn't have any money or a car. So that's my job, is to get him things that he needs to continue his learning. And then the third thing is resources. And resources can be with the internet now. There are so many online resources, or they can be anything in your house that you're willing to let the kids take and experiment with. So those are the 3 things: an adult, facilitator, lots of unstructured time, and resources as needed.
Okay. And so you just wait to have them ask you for this, or do you believe in what's called strewing?
I'm a big strewer. So I will, buy a big bucket of pattern blocks and I will just empty it out on the kitchen table. Kids walk by and, suddenly they've decided to sit down and play. So that's what strewing is. It's throwing things in kids' way that they might be interested in. Now I'm a real control freak, so I have a hard time. if they just walk by the table.
Mom.
Yeah. It's really difficult as an unschooling mom. I had to channel all my control-ishness into my work, and that was good. And then I left the kids alone. But yes, I do strew things. But the key is if they're not interested, they don't want to learn long division, they don't want to learn anything, back off, right? Let it go. Let them come to it when they want to. And if they don't, be okay with that.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It is. It's a mindset shift, to really let go and have trust that your kids will learn what they need to, when they need to eventually, hopefully. It's working. So I wanted to say, what are the benefits of this type of education methodology? Because a lot of now grown unschoolers. So you've kind of seen them, obviously your kids. So what are the benefits? What do you see with this type of education?
Well, in the book, I list about 61 benefits, and they're academic, they're social, they're emotional, they're physical, they're societal. But probably the biggest ones that parents would notice is there is no motivation problems. If there is any motivation problems, you're bribing, you're threatening your child to learn something, then that's not self-directed education. It has to come solely from the child when they need it or when they want it. And it will come. You have to trust that. Other benefits are teenagers get to sleep in, right? That's really good for building those brain cells. And it's also, I've noticed that teenagers aren't as cranky when they get the sleep they need. A lot of studies we've seen on child development have been, well, most of them, all of them, I would say, have been done on kids that are attending bricks and mortar schools. And that is not a natural childhood. So it's interesting to see how nice teenagers are when they get sleep. There's a lot of different benefits. In terms of academic, I would say that children, the learning sticks because they're interested in it. They learn critical thinking. They learn how to research. There's just so many benefits with this. Probably the biggest one too is that when kids are empowered to learn what they want, they love learning. They love learning for its own sake, not for pizza coupons. And
or grades, right? Or a GPA.
Or grades, yes, right? They see the value in it. And they have, with lots of time, a lot of them read a lot. So I did a survey once and found out that homeschooled, unschooled children read about 50 novels a year. In school, they read one, right? So that's a lot of learning right there on how to read. Back to the reading thing too. You can't tell who the late readers are or the early readers are, even by the content of the books they're reading a year later. They're into the novels when at age 11, even if they start reading at age 10. So there's just like toilet training. Nobody knows who started at 4 and 18 months.
Yeah.
But the benefits are that kids, when they, around age 17, let's say your son comes up from the basement and he's done playing Overwatch and he says to you, I think I want to be a doctor. And you're going, okay. This kid's had no math or science. That's the age. So when kids haven't been exposed to formal education year after year, either through school or homeschooling, that's when they're starting to gear up and say, this is what I want to do. I'm really motivated. And they put a lot of effort and time into it because it's going to get them somewhere, right? That's they're gearing up for the years that count, where kids who have been in school, formal school situations since age 2 are like burning out. They're going down, right? Yeah. So that's a big advantage you can give your kids, is to be excited about learning at the time that the marks really count.
Yeah.
those, upper grade 12
Yeah, it's
courses.
interesting because a lot of the public school kids, they, they burn out and then they somehow get to college or start a job. I mean, they become motivated later in life because they finally have control of what they want to do versus a system telling that. And, also,
Or they don't know what they want to do. A
yeah.
lot of kids come to post-secondary, get pushed in it by their parents, and haven't got a clue what they want to do other than party.
Yeah, because they haven't really had the time to really explore their interests. That's true.
Mhm.
Okay, but what
Mhm.
if these kids want to play video games all day? I mean, my kids went through a period. They still a little bit. What about that?
So I have 5 kids, and they are all avid gamers. Their dad got them into it. I just don't see the point, but so that has been a huge thing in our house, is that they all game everything, and we were a non-limiter. There is a continuum of that too. There's the strict limiters and the non-limiters, and we were the non-limiters. And 30 of their friends too, that I wrote about in the book, that went on to colleges and universities, they were all gamers too, because they're all friends, right? So but video gaming gets a bad rap. It is very educational. It is it teaches critical thinking. It teaches time management under pressure. It teaches problem solving. It teaches collaborative working together in groups, good teamwork skills. So it teaches all those things in a very compelling environment, right? So I've seen my kids, yes, I did worry about the amount of screen time, but if they're getting exercise, they're getting a lot of conversations and family time, playing a lot of video games, or being on the internet a lot, is screen time is not going to be an issue for them. The only time it's an issue is for young children under age 5. They do need to hear a lot of language and conversations to develop their speaking and language skills. But after age 5, children have their language. They are developing more, and as long as you have tech-free times, it's very good. The gamer I worried about the most is now working in a career for a major video game manufacturer.
Wow.
Right now. So it served them well.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, but, what about brain development with unschooling, or brain development, when you're playing video games or doing what you want all day? I mean, I know you mentioned you don't recommend it for children 5 and under, but what happens to the brain when you're learning what you want?
Well, the brain absorbs so much of it. So small children under age 5, they, like I said, they learn through 5 senses. So through their hearing, their smelling, their seeing, their touch, taste. That's why everything goes in the mouth. That's how they explore their world. And 3-dimensional learning, lots of toys, a lot of play is very good. But also, school-age children learn that way too. Actually, adults learn that way too. When we speak to adults at conferences, we try and get them up moving and doing something, and keep it interactive. But video games too are very good. They're very compelling, but they are only 2-dimensional. So you want to have lots of toys around. And what happens is, often when kids go to school, to a bricks and mortar school, a lot of parents pack away the messy toys, the paints, the Play-Doh, the blocks, the dress up. They pack it all away because the school now deals with the mess. And that's not what you want to do at home. You want to keep all those things out, teach the kids to clean up their own messes, but let them make those messes too. So again, children learn through, so the next stage is from 5 to 12, where they really learn through tangible things in their environment. They learn about planes through watching planes, being on planes. They learn about animals by experiencing them. They learn about science, social studies by going to museums and science centers, those kinds of things. And then around age 13, the big shift happens, right? So the brain develops from the bottom to the top and from the back to the front. So at age 13, the frontal cortex really kicks in, and then the prefrontal cortex until about age 25. And that's why I say that 17-year-old who comes up from your basement and wants to start planning what they're going to do for their life, that's that critical thinking, planning, decision-making, where they're thinking, oh, I don't want to stay in the basement and play video games the rest of my life. I actually want to do something. And that's where they absorb material so much more. And that's why you can teach 8 grades of math when a child's 13 in 1 year, right? Because the brain's ready. It's the executive function, the focus, the self-control, the critical thinking all kicks in that they can learn those 8 grades in 1 year. I know a lot of people worry about math, especially unschoolers. It's probably the last thing they give up, right? They still want to teach math. And yet, when kids are ready, they soak it in. They get it all. And I've watched my 5 kids start their math, because 3 were going into STEM careers like engineering and biomedical. So they did need higher math, right? But I watched them start their learning of math on paper about age 13, and then again around 15, and then really into it at age 16, 17. And it's not like they're starting from grade 1 because they've experienced math through their play. They're only starting the paper math at age 13. And that's when you can say, okay, this is how you add fractions on paper. This is the concept of a variable. That's when they get it instantly. Bam. But you try and teach that to a 7-year-old, they're not going to get it, right? Because they're not developed yet. So it's very important to follow brain development.
Yeah, so that sounds all great, but what happens if some kids, you give them too much control, they kind of do things that, I don't know, you don't approve of? I mean, if you do you consider that permissive parenting? I mean, how do you handle kids who are, I don't know, playing with fire or something, or doing something that you think is dangerous, or, just spending too much time on video games, violent video games, whatever you're against as a parent? How do you deal with that?
Well, there's that societal criticism that they say that unschooling is a form of permissive parenting. Actually, one of my kids in their university classes showed a clip of an unschooling family and said, this is an example of permissive parenting. And when I saw that, I was ready to get on the phone, boy, but I didn't. But it's that stereotype. Permissive parenting is when you don't say no to your kids because when you think you should, right? But permissive parenting too is just letting kids run free, no guidance, no guide on the side, kind of
neglect, basically.
Concept.
Neglect.
It's neglect. Yes, thank you. That's the word. Whereas unschooling definitely has very helpful parents if they're needed, they're around. And there's a continuum of unschooling too. A lot of people extend it into their family life where they let their children choose when to eat, when to sleep. That works for them. And there's also the other side where families just allow unschooling in their academic area and still have regular meals or bedtimes and things. That works for them too, right? So there's a huge continuum, and all those kids turn out fine. When people say, isn't it giving kids a lot of control to let them study what they want? They don't realize kids already have the control. We all own what we learn, what we pay attention to. And when kids are not interested in the government agenda, when they're little, they act out. They're the ones that act out in school because they're not interested. When they're older, they tune out, right? They're teenagers, they tune out. And when they're old enough, they drop out. And if we just shove more at the same at them, that's not going to fix our education right now.
Mhm.
Maybe we should hand it over to them earlier and say, here's the world, learn what you want.
That's
Just
beautiful.
learn something,
Yeah.
right?
So you're not worried that there will be gaps in any of these kids, that there's something that they need to know, but they're not learning it because they're not interested?
Oh yeah, I worried. And I did see gaps. One example was when my daughter went to Girl Guides, and they were all singing the national anthem, and she didn't know it.
Ah.
So guess what? She comes home and she says, Mom, I need to learn this. And she was motivated to learn it, and she was the best singer.
Mhm.
But people have to realize too that schools can't teach everything.
Mhm.
They pick and choose content too. So, for example, in our system, the kids learn about 5 countries. They learn Peru, Japan, Brazil, Canada, and the indigenous.
Mhm.
And they pick and choose. I mean, there are hundreds of countries that kids can learn about, but they can't. There's not enough time. So there's gaps there too. If they travel to Uruguay, they don't know anything about it, right? So there's gaps in school, but there's also gaps in homeschooling and unschooling, and children will fill in what they need when they need it.
Yeah. And they're also learning how to learn on their own
Mm-hmm.
without waiting for the
Absolutely.
teacher to tell them what to learn, and then someday a supervisor telling them what to do. So they're really self-directed. Okay, so what about university? All your kids are either have graduated, or one's in it and one's probably going to it, because some people think that unschoolers are just these crazy hippie kids that are not going to go to university, are not going to do anything in their lives, or they're going to be super artsy or whatever. So what about university? Do you see a lot of unschoolers attend and do well?
I do, absolutely. So post-secondary is one career avenue, entrepreneurship is another, going into the work world is another. So it's whatever kids want to do. But we do get that question a lot. What about university or colleges? So when that 17-year-old gets up from the basement and says, I want to be a doctor, right? What they can do is research, well, where do you want to go and what do you need to get there? And pretty well, they can get all they need within about 2-3 years. Even, and I have a nice slide that shows us what do they need to be a doctor in Canada and how they can set those courses up. So when my kids were about 16, I said, what do you want to do? Are you heading somewhere? And they all picked a career that they wanted to go to. So then about age 16, 17, we said, okay, this is what you need. You need, for engineering, you need chemistry and physics and calculus, blah, blah, blah. For English, you need blah, blah, blah. So they got those grade 12 courses, and then they went off they applied to 10 universities across Canada.
Now, how do you apply without transcripts or, I don't know, grades? How does that work in Canada?
What you can do is write the SATs, you can write the ACTs, you can write your jurisdiction's grade 12 leaving exams. You can buy books that catch you up on it, on what to learn, what to study. You can buy, math is math, chemistry is chemistry. You can buy any high school textbook and learn it, or learn it from the internet, right? Or take one of your school courses.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn all that, and you can either self-teach yourself. I know parents are looking at their little 11-year-old and thinking, this kid can't possibly know more than I do and teach themselves. Well, they will get to an age where they can teach themselves. You don't have to teach them. And they can do that, or they can learn a lot from the internet. Students are borderless now. They can learn from any country in the world, any course. They don't have to take their government one. Yep. And universities are starting to recognize that students are borderless. So when my kids went off to university, a lot of their unschooled friends did. And that's why I featured 30 of them in the book, Unschooling to University, what they went into, how they got there, what did they present for credentials, you know, how many years did they unschool. And of the 30, they unschooled anywhere from 3 to 12 years of their education years. 10 went into STEM, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics. We actually had 4 engineers in that group.
Wow.
10 went into arts and 10 went into humanities. And the book came out in 2018. 22 have already graduated, and we already have 2 master's students.
Wow.
Of the 30. So
not bad.
It's doable.
Yeah, not bad.
Definitely doable.
Okay, so tell us more about your story, because these books are amazing. I want to read them all. How did you get into being kind of an unschooling expert? And I mean, obviously you're a mom and you're raising your kids that way, but how did you get into writing books and being a speaker and all that good stuff?
Okay, well, my career, which I didn't discover till I was in my late 30s, is of child development and teaching brain and child development. So that's my career. And when I started raising my kids, I raised them with non-punitive parenting. So when I sent them to school, because my husband is English and he thought, hey, the schools over here are better than the schools over there, let's put them in school. So I thought, okay, fine. So I did, and I didn't like the punitive aspect. I didn't like kids being punished for not reading or, you know, doing a picture differently than the other 29 kids. I saw their curiosity being hammered out of them. And then my husband decided to go work in Peru for 2 years. And I said, okay, you're going to Peru. I'm doing education my way. So then we brought the kids home. So we did that continuum, right? We did school, and then we did homeschooling. And then by November that year, the kids stopped listening to me. They were like, oh, you're mom, you're safe. I don't have to do what you tell me. And I'm non-punitive, right? So then I let go of the school work and the homeschooling work. And then we played for about 10 years. And it's what a lot of parents are discovering now is how much kids learn on their own, how much they learn through play. And it's just mind-numbing what they come up with on their own. So then, and that's where we got to, you know, they came up from the basement at age 16 and then we started talking about what's your future. And then they went to university. So I had one engineer, one nurse, and one humanities major, and one in biochemistry right now. And the youngest one, I don't know where he's going yet. Okay. He's not sure.
How old is he?
He's 18.
Okay. Yeah. But he'll most likely figure it out soon.
And maybe not soon, you know, maybe. And that's another thing too, when the kids got their degrees, some are not working in the careers they set out for. Because as you probably know, you know, technology changes. So I have one son in cybersecurity, although he's an engineer. You know, but everything he learned in cybersecurity, he didn't learn in school. Right? He didn't learn through, he's self-taught through the internet, through courses. So,
okay, but you still see the value in a post-secondary education, no matter what they want to do in the future for their career. Yes? Because some people think it's a waste of time to go to college.
I do too, but I think however people get educated, we're still going to have qualifications. I want them. I want the pilot of my plane to be qualified at a certain level. I want my brain surgeon qualified at a certain level. So we still are going to have levels of qualification. How kids get there is the future. How we prove qualifications is the future.
Right.
You know, not that kids have to go to post-secondary, but they have to have that knowledge somehow.
Right. Okay, can we talk about parents? Because, you know, you have some parents who work outside the home. I mean, obviously, homeschooling is pretty difficult to do that way. Or they work in the home, or they don't work. I would imagine a homeschooling parent has to be a little bit more hands-on with their kids. But maybe an unschooling mom or dad doesn't have to be. Like, what are the benefits for parents? Can they, because, you know, they're going to be a little bit more hands off maybe and just around to facilitate and help and support and guide. Like, how does that
Mhm.
work for a parent? What do you need as a lifestyle to do this successfully?
Well, as a homeschooling parent, they definitely need to be around because they have to learn the lessons, teach the lessons, mark the lessons, and that's a lot of prep time. Where unschooling parents work full time, part time. I worked part time, and actually, it gives parents a focus to take the focus off their kids and allow their kids that freedom to explore and um, pursue their knowledge. They do need to be around, though. Like I said, it's not permissive parenting, it's involved parenting. There are times that children want to experiment. Um, I tell the story about our kids' fascination with fire.
Mhm.
That's something I wouldn't want the kids to do on their own.
Yeah,
You know, like it had to be, I was always a yes parent. Okay, yes, we'll do this. Yes, we'll do this. But it has to have some parameters around it for safety. So it has to be in a fire pit. I have to be there. We have to have a hose nearby, and then you can, you know, experiment with fire. But that's what's needed is they need parents around as facilitators when they need them. Now, a lot of times they can go off, read a book, do a project. They don't need parents, but when they do need you, they need you. But it's okay also as a parent to set some limits. And when my child wants to do something at midnight, because, you know, teenagers, they come alive at night. And I'm like winding down at 11. I'm not going to do that at midnight.
right,
So it's getting the family together and problem solving those conflicts,
right, right.
right? And that's what you do. But everybody, yeah, you can still work full time, absolutely, or part time.
Mhm.
Oh, that's the other thing too. A lot of parents now, because students are borderless, you can hire tutors. You don't have to teach. You can hire tutors. You can hire childcare to be the unschooling adult too.
Yeah, there's many ways to do it. Hacking the
Mhm.
education system and your lifestyle, get help from
Mhm.
outside. So do you think unschooling or self-directed education, whatever you want to call it, do you think this is the future of education?
I think it's definitely the future where we have more hybrid education. Right now, I know in Canada, it's either or. You either home educate or you send your kids to school. There's no part-time send your kid to one class at school, do a little homeschooling, do a little unschooling.
Mm,
It can't be that way because a lot of schools reject it due to loss of funding. They
mm,
don't want the hassles of dealing with one child for one class. They
right,
want them full time, full funding.
right.
But I see that opening up a bit, especially with COVID now impacting the way delivery is handled. So many parents are upset with the online content. It's not enough, it's too much, it's not what it should be. A lot are not happy with them having to deliver. So I can see it opening up to a whole mishmash of hybrid models of where you can send your child to the library for this class, they can stay home this afternoon and work on this. Tonight they could do an online class through an online school. Could
Mhm.
be, and then it's just proving your qualifications at the end.
Yeah, yeah, you can mix and match all that. Wonderful.
Mhm.
Well, thank you, Judy. This has been so much great information, and I really hope, because like you mentioned, I kind of went from my kids being in public school, and then we did a bit of homeschooling, and then we were traveling. My kids and we were world schoolers, and we were unschooling,
Mm.
and now they're really into the self-directed education. So it's working for us, but I do know it takes some parents time to get on the bandwagon of what works. And Yeah, so thank you for helping explain it to everyone and your wonderful participation in the summit. Let us know about any projects that you're working on, or let us know your website or how people can get in touch with you.
Okay, the website is www.unschoolingtouniversity.com. It's the book title, which is backwards. And that's a blog where I put a lot of my experiences with the kids that I didn't put in the book, but things that are happening now, how they're adjusting to university, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I have judyarnall.com. You can reach me there. I'm all over social media. I have a Facebook group called Unschooling STEM, STEM. So come join me there, and yeah, be great. And it's JUDYARNALL.
Double L, yes, awesome. Well, thank you, Judy. This has been such a great talk, and I'm sure some of them will have their mind blown a little, but hopefully some of them will say, we'll give this a try. And the thing is, if it doesn't work out, you can always go buy that box curriculum, right?
Absolutely. You can even put it back into school.
Exactly. We doubt you'll do that, but that's an option too. Give it a try.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.